Adumo Adum Arakwa, believers all the way, Philadelphia, and I believe wherever you are, you've responded. Adishakonkro, beloved partakers of the heavenly calling, you once again welcome to another edition of the Friday Sermon Summary. I'm your usual presenter, your brother, Kyei-Duah. But without much ado, as I always say, I would like to extend great greetings to our father, Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God. And not forgetting our mom, or Brimpon, Ahunipankasa Adum Kyei-Duah the first. Daddy and mommy, I will continue to say that may God continue to bless you as you always bring us insights and in-depth interpretation of the Bible. May God bless you so much. And to our cherished viewers, those watching us on our app, and those on Second Chance TV, we say, may Adum Nyame bless you all. And all those on our social media platforms, may Adum Nyame bless you all. Not forgetting my wonderful and cherished listeners, those on our various frequency modulators, we say, may Adum Nyame bless you as you are seated and glued to your seat to listen to a summary of the sermon being delivered by Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God. May we proceed on to what transpired. Today, the voice of God chose to speak on a topic which every man is yearning to hear. Every man wants to know the truth about this topic. So today, Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, chose to speak on tithe or titan. According to Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, he began his sermon by teaching us about what the other men of God have been telling us about titan. According to these other men of God, what they have been telling us, or what they put in our minds, was that one can never prosper. No Christian can ever prosper or become rich without paying tithe. And as such, what they did was they made us to understand and also believe that even gifts which were handed over to us in the form of properties or in the form of even food items, we were to find a monetary value for all these things and to come and pay a tenth of these things to them in the temples. This was what the other men of God taught us, that we were to pay 10% of whatever thing that we got, our properties, gifts, whatever we had, we needed to find a monetary value for that thing and come and pay a tenth of it to the temple in order for us to be rich or in order for us to be prosperous. These were the teachings which the other men of God gave to us. These were the teachings that the other men of God gave to us. But according to Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, he said, even during the inception or when Christianity first came to Ghana, that was when the missionaries were being introduced into our country, the Gold Coast, somewhere around 1928, when the missionaries brought about Christianity. They never thought about titan. They never thought about we giving tithe. They never thought about these things. And Stephen Kyei-Duah said this emphatically, that if we want the truth, we should go to the Orthodox churches and ask the leaders over there that their leaders began with the teachings on tithing. No, they never taught about tithing. The Orthodox churches are a good example that we can learn from, that we can ask these things from them, that they never taught. The missionaries who brought Christianity into our land never taught about tithing. So Stephen Kyei-Duah asks us to note this thing, that the cause of all our predicaments, that the cause of all our woes, the cause of all our hardship, our poverty should never be blamed on anything than the tithes that we pay. And the church is being also impoverished, or simply because they also receive the tithes. So we will continue to be poor, and the church will also continue to be impoverished because we pay and they also take the tithes. And that is the cause of our woes. We paying tithes has become the cause of all our woes. Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, also said that there is a big difference between the origin of tithing and the origin of Christianity. And we need to know this, that there is a big difference, a big gap exists between the origin, where tithing came from, and the origin of Christianity. So tithing and Christianity are two separate things, two sides of a coin. They are two separate. And we need to know these things. So Stephen Kyei-Duah began to talk about the origin of the worship of God. According to Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, he said, the worshiping of God began with a group of people who lived on a particular land. The worshiping of God, once again, began with a group of people who lived on a particular land. And these people lived with specified rules and regulations. These were the days of the prophets, and these were the days when men worshipped in tents. And this group of people who lived on that particular land had their own rules and regulations. And according to Stephen Kyei-Duah, some of these rules were, one, that they could only prosper, they could only become rich or they could gain prosperity through the payment of tithes. That was one of their rules. That those people, they could be prosperous when they pay tithes. And another rule for this particular group of people was that these people were the group of people who worshipped on Saturdays. They never worked on Saturday. Saturday was a day that they set aside to worship God. They never worked. Nobody worked on that day. That was the day they dedicated to the service of God. And these were the rules that these people were observing. They were a small group of people. These people were a small group of people. And one unique thing about this group of people was that before they go into harvest, at the end of each year, before they harvest their crops, what they did was that they had a festival which they celebrated to thank God. They celebrated these festivals to thank God for helping their crops to yield before they will go back to harvest their crops. So after harvesting, they take 1/10 of it to the temple as their tithe. So these were the people who were paying tithes. These people observed every year, annually, they observed a festival to thank God before they went into the fields to harvest their crops. And as such, they were able to give a proper account of their product. Just as in Ghana, we had something what we used to know as the Yam Festival. We celebrated these festivals before we go out into our farms to harvest our yams. This was the kind of festival. This was a type of that festival which was being celebrated by this particular group of people, that they thanked God before they went into the fields to harvest their crops. And this particular group of people had some group of people among them. Among this particular group of people, there were some group of people among them who were known as the Levites, as Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah said. They were known as Levites. And who were these Levites? According to Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, the Levites were the first male-borns of married virgins. The first male-borns of married virgins. These first male-borns were sent into the temple to serve God within the 8 years of 3 to 10 years, 3 years or 7 years or 10 years. These people were sent there to serve God. They were the first sons, the male sons of virgins who were being married. They were sent into the temples to serve God. And Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah asks us to note something over here, that tithe is a special package for special people within a particular group or family. In those days, the tithe was a special package for that special group of people, for the Levites. They were the people who were sent into the temple to go and serve. They were to go into the temple to serve. According to Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah, there is a difference between service, call on God, and worship. The Levites were taken into the temple to serve God. So Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah gave an example. He likened their service to God like as it's being written in Revelation chapter 4. Just as the angels worship God day in and out in the heavens, as stated in Revelation chapter 4. So the Levites, their duty, they were isolated from the society. They were not practicing, or they were not doing any socio-economic activity. No, theirs were to stay in the temple. They were supposed to be in the temple. They were being isolated from the society. Theirs was solely to serve God. Theirs was solely to serve God. And one unique thing about these Levites, as Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, said, that was that these Levites did not shave their hair, neither did they not also shave their beard. They had long beards and they never shaved their hair. And these Levites, just as they served God, God in turn also served them. And in God's attempt to serve them, they were to feed on the tithes which were being brought into the temple. So the tithes were meant for the Levites and nobody else. Nobody was supposed to have a bite of the tithe. It was solely meant for the Levites. In those days, according to Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah, nobody within that group of people, nobody could mention the name of God nor call on the name of God as we can do today. We can pray in our rooms. No, you couldn't call on the name of God, because in those days, God totally hated death. He hated filth. And as such, not everybody could call on the name of God, but with the exception of those Levites and the priests. And it is out of the Levites, as Stephen Adumuche, the voice of God said, out of the Levites did we have priests. So these were consecrated people. These were isolated people who led the holy life and lived all their life in the temple. So these were the only group of people who could call on the name of God, and as such, they prayed for the society, interceded for the families, and they prayed for the total group. These were the only people who could call on the name of God. So the tithes were meant for these people, and nobody else could take a bite of the tithes. In those days, their land, just as I said earlier on, that this was meant for a group of people on a particular land. The nature of their land was that, according to Stephen Adumuche, the voice of God, he said this group of people lived on a land which was mountainous. Their land was rocky. There wasn't fertile lands as we have over here, that even a cassava can germinate anywhere you throw the stalk. No, but their land was full of rocks. It was stony. It was mountainous. However, because of the prayers of these Levites, because the Levites interceded for them, their livestock, their grains flourished, and their livestock grew fatter. This was the miraculous thing about these Levites, the prayers of these Levites. God listened to the prayers of these Levites because they were consecrated, because they were holy, and they could call on the name of God. They could call on the name of God. So, according to Stephen Adumuche, the voice of God, the rule was that anyone who wanted to prosper on the land should give a tenth of his grains, olive oil, or livestock to the Levites in the temple. They were to be given to the Levites in the temple because they did not work. The Levites did not work. So a tenth of their properties were to be sent to the Levites in the temple. And it was also a curse or a taboo for anyone to take a bite of the Levites' food. The tenth which was being sent into the temple for the Levites, it was a curse or a taboo. So Stephen Adumuche, the voice of God, talked about David and his soldiers when they went to the house of Saul and were hungry. They had a problem with that. They had an issue with that. So Stephen Adumuche over here asks us to note that even if David and his soldiers had an issue for going to touch of the bread of the Levites, that should tell us about the blessings and curses associated with tithing. That we can't just go in to give our tithe or say we are paying tithe, because tithing comes along with its own blessings and curses. So Stephen Adumuche asks the other men of God who are now taking tithes, and to we Christians who have also been offering our tithes, that do we qualify to pay these tithes? Our men of God whom we know belong to secret societies. So are they qualified to be taking these tithes? No wonder most of them end up on sick beds, bedridden with strokes, bedridden with diabetes. Most of them are sick because what they are practicing is not expected of them. They are not supposed to be taking these tithes, and we are also not supposed to be paying. That is why we keep on being poor, because they taught us that we are to give the tithes and God will in turn bless us. We will be prosperous. But what are we seeing? We are not being prospered. We are not receiving our blessings, even though we pay these tithes. So are we supposed to continue paying these tithes? And are they also supposed to continue taking these tithes from us? And one unique thing about these men of God out there is that even their own born kids, as Stephen Adumuche said, the voice of God, their own kids are not able to take over when they are out. When they leave the scene, when they die, their own kids are not able to take after them, to take over from them. So Stephen Adumuche asks us to note that tithing is a dangerous act. And tithe is a dangerous thing that we cannot joke with. It was meant for a particular group of people who lived on a particular land. And these people had their own rules and regulations. So here Stephen Adumuche said, he has never paid tithe before. And he has never taken any tithe from anybody before. No wonder in his arena, things are flourishing. No wonder in his arena, we keep on seeing testimonies over testimonies. No wonder in his arena, you cannot even understand. Things are mind-blowing and dumbfounding. Look at the testimonies. Look at the type of word of God which comes from Stephen Adumuche, the voice of God. So according to Stephen Adumuche, the voice of God, he said that tithing ended on the day of Malachi. That was when tithing ended. In those days, Stephen Adonijah said that in those days, in the days of Malachi, there was a big hardship and difficulty on the land. Men were faced with hardship to the extent that it extended into the temple. The people were no longer paying tithes. They were not paying the tithes to the temple for the Levites to also get something to feed on in order to be strong, to be able to intercede for the land. So the Levites were also suffering. So because of that, the people stopped paying tithe. They disobeyed the rule. They had a rule and regulations set by God that they were supposed to follow. That was for them to pay their tithe in order for God to also bless them. But these people disobeyed that rule. They disobeyed. And as such, their land became impoverished. They became poor. So God sends Malachi to go and warn them that they were to test him, God. If they are to come back and pay their tithes, he was also ready to bless these people. God was ready to bless these people. And this is the section, according to Stephen Adonijah, the voice of God, this is the section where the other men of God used as their basis to be taking tithes, to be siphoning from us. This was the basis. And Stephen Adonijah, the voice of God, gave the example of a woman who gave birth to 7 kids and more. And when asked, why are you giving birth too much in that way? The woman said, the Bible says that we are to reproduce to fill the earth. Whilst you don't have the capital to take care of these kids. So the fact that it is written in the Bible doesn't mean you can use that as a basis. No. So the men of God who use that as a basis to be taking tithe is wrong. That is why the blessings and the curses in tithing, you are experiencing the curses in tithing because you are not qualified to take the tithes. May we continue. So Stephen Adonijah over here asks us to note that tithing ended on the era of Malachi. No wonder Malachi is the last book in the Old Testament. That was when tithing also ended. So when Christianity emerged in the New Testament, Jesus Christ, according to Stephen Adonijah, Jesus Christ was provoked because the men of God in those days were still siphoning tithe from people. And and these men had enriched themselves with the tithes, whilst their congregants, the men in the town, were rather becoming lean. They were growing lean. And Stephen Adonijah said, Jesus Christ was provoked at these men of God. He was provoked. How can we be taking tithes on this land? How do we make our money? How do we come by our money? This land, in our Ghana land, on the land of Ghana, can we be paying tithe? This is a multi-million question that Stephen Adonijah, the voice of God, asked. Can we be paying tithes? Not because we don't qualify. We are not holy. We are the sons, we are the offsprings of idol worshippers. How do we come by money? Through stealing, cheating, defrauding others. How can we pay tithe out of these monies? How can we pay tithe out of these monies? So Stephen Adonijah, the voice of God, stressed that it is only on the promised land that we can pay tithe. Men on the promised land, the land which God promised the Israelites, men on that land are the only people who can pay tithe, and not we in this country, on this particular land. But let's look in the arena of we, the Philadelphian movement. We do not pay tithe. No wonder God is also blessing us. We do not take tithe here, neither do we pay tithe here, so God is also blessing us. So tithing is only meant to prosper those on that particular land which God promised them. So Stephen Adonijah said, tithing is a planned thing by the men of God out there. They planned tithe as an avenue to be able to extort from we the congregants. So today he made that confession that he being supposedly as a man of God with all the other men of God, he is confessing today, just as a thief will come out to confess what they do in their arena. Stephen Adonijah, the voice of God, is saying that today, tithing is a plan being orchestrated by the men of God to be able to siphon from we the congregants. And we are not supposed to pay tithes. The men of God told us and taught us that if we want to be prosperous, if we want to be rich, we are to pay the tithes. But where is the prosperity? And where is our richness coming from? Have we been enriched after paying the tithes? No. So what they wonderfully taught us again was they began to resort, they taught us that we are to resort to breaking and loosing. You taught us that we are supposed to pay the tithe for God to bless us. And when the blessings are now not coming again, you are now telling us that rather we are to be breaking and loosing. This is what the other men out there are teaching us. They taught us to be seeking for spiritual directives. Whilst you've already taught us to pay tithes so that we will be blessed, and now the blessings are not coming, you promised that God says if we pay the tithe, we will be blessed. And the blessings are not coming. Meaning the tithing is a wrong act. But rather, they have turned to teach us that we are supposed to seek for spiritual directives. And in the course of seeking for these spiritual directives, they told us that we have been bewitched. They told us that we are, the cause of our predicament is as a result of a mermaid. It's as a result of a causative agent that we are to pray back to sender. Whilst you've already told us that if we pay the tithe, we will be blessed. No wonder they also brought in the introduction of the prayer warriors in the various temples, that they were to intercede on our behalf. Simply because the blessings are not coming. It's solely because the avenue or the path that you taught us was the wrong path. Then after this, Stephen Adum said, these people, these men of God taught us to rather now currently to blame our predicament on the government. The government of the day, that it's as a result of the plan of the government. That is why we are being impoverished. That's why we are facing all these difficulties. No, but that is wrong. Men of God could even stand on their purpose to insult the government of the day, simply because they are now teaching us that our predicament is as a result of the government, which isn't so. So Stephen Adum advised that if you can't carry to the advice to the men of God, that if you can't carry your load, do not blame your part. And he also has advised the government of the day that they should rather look up to God and not to seek or solicit for assistance from the hands of these men of God. No. These same men of God taught us that when we pay our tithes, we will be blessed by God. We will be enriched by God. But why is it that the blessing we are paying and the blessings are not coming? And rather, they have turned to tell us that we are to rather blame it on other powers, on other things, witches, mermaids. And they have now turned again to blame these predicaments on the government of the day. So Stephen Adum, the voice of God today, is advising us that we are to be careful. This is not meant for us. This is not the way to our prosperity, no. But our way to our prosperity is from God. From here, he asks us to open our Bibles to Matthew chapter 23, verse 23, and I take it from there. Matthew chapter 23, verse 23, and I take it from the Bible. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law. So this is what Stephen Adum, the voice of God, was talking about. That Jesus was provoked by these men of God. That they asked men to pay these tithes. They enrich themselves with these tithes, but they have neglected the most important of the law. So what good can we emulate from these men of God? What good thing can be achieved from these men of God? Why should we learn from these men of God? Why do we learn from them? Does Christianity approve of such men of God? Jesus Christ spoke against them. So we, followers of Jesus Christ, why should we also import their practices into Christianity? This is a multi-million question that Stephen Adum, the voice of God, asked us. Jesus Christ was provoked at their acts, that they take men. Verse 23 again. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, which is justice, mercy, and faith and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. But what do these men of God do? They have rather accepted the former and left the latter, the most important of the law. That is justice, mercy, and faithfulness. So Stephen Adum, the voice of God today, is advising us that we are to be careful. The most important of the law, the most important thing of the law is for us to consider justice, mercy, and faithfulness. After that, we can go ahead to pay our tithes. But do we even qualify? Does justice do unto others as you want others to do unto you? Do you do same to others? Mercy. Do you have mercy on others? Men of God are even siphoning from congregants. Do we have mercy on them? From the poor, they know they don't have. You are not. Somebody who is not working is even supposed by law to still pay tithes. Is this the best practice? But whilst the most important practices are justice, mercy, and faithfulness, are we faithful? What do we do? The job that we are supposed to do, are we faithful to the cause? Are we faithful? The Bible, and I'm going to take it from the Bible again, that you should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guys, you strain out an ant but swallow a camel. This is what Jesus even told those men of God who were taking tithes. That they are blind guys. They swallow an ant. That you strain out a gnat but swallow a camel. Instead of considering the most important law, which is justice, mercy, and faithfulness, you are rather focused on the taking of tithes. So believers out there, partakers of the heavenly calling out there, Stephen Adumtide, the voice of God, is admonishing us that our prosperity, our richness will only come when we consider first justice, mercy, and faithfulness. After this, then we consider the former. This is what we are supposed to do as Christians. So Stephen Adumtide, the voice of God, advised that what we are even seeing is on the latter side. In his arena, he doesn't encourage tithing and he doesn't take tithes. His is that you are to consecrate yourself and live a better life. Live a life with justice, mercy, and faithfulness as your focus. And you will surely be blessed. And this is being shown in his arena. It's being proven in his arena. Look at him. Just a single individual financing all these projects. In addition, let's look at the hand of God in his arena. He can mention the name of God, and just as the Levites did, we see testimonies. But can the other men of God mention the name of God for us to see testimonies in their arena? A word to the wise is always said. Until we meet again next week, it's bye-bye for now. But let's remember to uphold justice, mercy, and faithfulness. Until we meet again next week, it's bye-bye for now. Adumo Adum Arakwa. Bye-bye.